Hi friends, if you're new to the channel, please hit the subscribe button and also hit the notification bell. And if you've been following the channel and watching the videos, I appreciate the support. Today we're going to talk about watering systems in an adaptive grazing situation. It seems as though the many farmers that I speak to, water is one of the biggest challenges there is in a rotational or adaptive grazing system. So I wanted to show you some of the watering systems that we have that I've done. I'm going to show you one that's not completely done. It's an insulated tub. I think it's going to work extremely well. This tub here is, I believe it's a 12-gallon mortar mixing tub, relatively inexpensive at your building center. And then this here is 1-inch conduit bent to protect the valve, and it has a Job valve and a Job topaz valve in it. We've actually been able to water 110 animal units out of this tub in a 90-degree day and have not had any issues whatsoever. And how we do that is rotationally grazing or adaptive grazing or mob grazing or whatever kind of grazing you want to call it. We keep this water tub within 200 to 300 feet from the livestock at all times, and whenever we do that, just 1 or 2 animals come to drink at once. Now if this was permanently fixed at the other end of the field, whenever the whole herd come back, it would not be able to supply adequate moisture or adequate water supply to the cows. But we've used this. It's highly portable. My daughter can pick it up and move it. My son can move it. It's very easy to use. Now we've used this tub here a little bit, not a lot. It's a 40-gallon tough stuff tub. We only fill our tubs to about between 10 and 15 gallons, and you can see the mark right there of the 10 or 15 gallon mark. And I also wanted to show you here, this here had a split in the side, and the way we fix those splits is I like to use 55-gallon drums, and then I just put 1/4-inch bolts with fender washers on them. You can fix almost any tub for that. And then in the back here where the valve goes, I always plate it to make it stronger, because what happens if you have a really hot day and the tub gets to be about 100 degrees, this plastic becomes very pliable, and the valve has the tendency to want to twist out of it. And then I put a little bit of valve protection on the top. It's not quite adequate for cows. I'm going to show you why it's not quite adequate for cows. One of these things you need to watch about these Job valves is they twist in and out. That's locked in. But if we don't have adequate protection for these Job topaz valves, she'll hit it with her nose, push it out, and then she's drinking from a fountain. And the cows really like to drink from fountains, I've come to find out. But the problem is you're normally not there whenever it happens, and you end up with a pond in the middle of your field. Now Job makes a top mount tub piece for this setup, and I have one here, and to be quite honest with you, it's quite cumbersome and a pain in the neck. So I really don't recommend it. The Job topaz valves have served me extremely well. Now this little attachment in the top of this is called a Frost Pro. This Frost Pro, whenever you turn it on, water trickles out the end of this hose and keeps it from freezing up. And I've been able to use this down to 9 degrees without any freeze ups. Now I do want to kind of warn on using this whenever it's cold out. As we all know, water expands whenever it freezes, and no matter how much the flow is on the water coming out at some temperature, it's going to end up freezing. This valve here, or what's left of this valve here, I had it mounted on the top, and this is the second one I've done this to. I had it mounted on the top with the Frost Pro, and it froze up. And whenever these Job Topaz valves freeze up, they're junk. Because water expands, it pushes the front out of the valve, it splits this piece here, and essentially it's junk. You just wasted $100. Just be careful if you're going to do this and be out in freezing cold weather with your valves. Try to keep it underneath the water surface. I haven't had one freeze up since I've lowered it to below the surface of the water. Now this tub here, you can see I put a lot more protection on it. The cow can't flip that Job valve out of there anymore. And we're actually doing away with the Job valves. I found a brass valve that is a whole lot better, I feel, and a lot less expensive. The valve right now, I just looked it up yesterday morning, it was $19.72 with the shipping to the door. This valve here, I'm going to show you in more detail. There's just a couple moving parts to it. It's a very simple valve. It's a high flow valve. It'll flow as good as the Job Topaz, but this here's an add-on that I put on it. It's just a needle valve. It's tapped into the side of the valve with a little dropper, or similar to the Frost Pro, but I can adjust the flow of water. So if it's going to get really cold at night, I can adjust the flow right here. This here water tub is my subarctic water tub, I guess you could say. I don't know if you can see down in there, probably not, but there's a Job quick connect on there, and then there's a copper tube that comes down. That copper tube has a hole right in the end of it, and it's blowing water up into here all the time. But this here's really cheap water tub. It's all insulated, and that's generation 1. I'm going to show you generation 2 and how it's put together, and maybe you're going to want to build one. This here's kind of what it looks like. It's an insulated tub. I'm going to pull the cover off the side here in a moment and show you what it looks like in there. This here's a 55-gallon drum, cut down to 18.5 inches. We'll start at the bottom and work our way to the top. Here's just a 1-inch board, cut at 2.5 inches or 3 inches. Don't remember what it is. Screwed on to this piece of plywood. I acquired this plywood from a good friend of mine. If he's watching, I'd like to thank him. I really appreciate letting me use this plywood for this project. This here's a piece of foam insulation. You can buy it in 4x8 sheets. It's 2 inches. Really light and has good insulating properties. And this here's double bubble insulation that you use for putting on a metal roof. There's 5 layers of that in there. And this here's what it looks like. It's got a piece of tin foil on it to reflect the heat back in. But you can use other insulating materials. I would recommend using stuff that's waterproof or water resistant. If you use regular fiberglass insulation, it's going to take on water if you get any moisture in there and potentially cause you to freeze up. But one thing you could use, and I've seen a lot of good stuff, you know, come in packages that arrive, you know, use that bubble wrap up that comes in our packages. When we come up, we have another plywood ring, and then we have a donut cut off and on the top, and then I have it sealed in with silicone and then screwed down to the top just to help with insulating properties. And then I'm pretty sure that tub system there is going to be good down to about 0, but if we drop down below 0, I'm gonna put this in it. I'll put this in it, and that will help insulate the surface of the water, and then this here will be down below the surface of the water, and maybe it will come up an inch whenever it stops flowing, and that will cause a dead air space in the top, between the top of the water and the top of the tank. So that's less surfaces exposed to the cold air and less likely to freeze up. I've used that other tub down to minus 13 degrees, and that's cold as it's been, and it performed extremely well, and I have no reason it won't work clear down to 25 below zero. This here's the new valve that I've started using. Okay, this is the valve that I've switched over. I was using it for different applications, so the end's messed up on a little bit, but it's alright, it will serve the purpose for my needs. But this brass valve cost $19.72 as of yesterday. I've seen it as high as priced as $26.72 or $26 and something. But it's still a lot cheaper than what the Topaz valve. And the Topaz, don't get me wrong, the Topaz valve served me extremely well. But this here valve here, it has five main components. We have the valve body, we have a plunger, there's a little rubber stopper on the end of that, a little pivot arm, and then we have the float adjustment arm, and then there's a brass cotter pin that goes in there. So it's relatively simple setup, and as if you know me on the farm, simple, I like simple. It's the valve's called a Mueller, M-U-E-L-L-E-R, brass valve. Now what I did to this valve to make it special is, you can see this needle valve here. I drilled and tapped this needle valve into the valve body, and then I can turn the water on and off as I need. And then I have this little copper, I don't have everything tightened up on it yet, but I have this little copper tube, and at the end of the tube I have a hole drilled. And that hole, I'm hoping to shoot it up towards that hole in the center of the tub for whenever it gets really cold. Now to attach that to the tub, I'll slip this through the tub wall, and then I like to support everything that I do. I'll put this plastic washer on there, and then screw this on. This here valve can be a little bit scary getting it in there and getting it tapped, but one way you could get away from that is to put a coupler on here and make sure it's inside the tub, and drill and tap the coupler. It'll be a lot easier to put your needle valve on. The needle valve I think is $5.65 or something like that. So it's well worth the money. It costs way less than what the Job Topaz Frost Pro cost, and those Frost Pros don't last extremely long. They have very, very small working parts in them, and I find that they plug themselves up and can cause a lot of problems. But we're going to use a float on a string for this setup, and I haven't tied the float off yet because I'm not sure at what height it's going to need. We'll do that when we go out and take a look at it. We're going to keep that float in towards the bottom. Now if you don't want to use the Job float, I like the Job floats. They're designed for livestock, and as you know, everybody knows the bull in the china shop phrase. Cows are the same way. They sure know how to bust things up. I bought this. This is a toilet bowl float with a 1/4 inch stainless steel rod on it, threaded rod. That total setup there cost $4. It works. I used it pretty much all last summer before I started switching my Job floats out. So I'm going to use the Job floats on these brass fells. I think they're going to perform better. Now in this tub I have an Overflow. And this here is a lot of overkill here in this situation. There's probably 20 bucks worth of brass fittings there. It's what I have laying around. I get to a building center someplace, I will buy the proper stuff to do this. But that there will go through. This here will dip down into the water a little bit. That way the air coming in this hole here, I'll have a short chunk of hose on there. That way the air can't blow up in here and cause this section of the tub to cool off. That way, you know, the water flow is up here. And well, friends, let me get this tub put together and I'll meet you in the field. Okay, we're out into the field now. I got that water tub put together. Show you some of the stockpile we're in. Nice green grass in here. Cows have been in this section here for a day. And by the looks of it, they'll be here for another day too. I gave them a little too much. I'll show you my current system. I have the water shut off and unhooked and dumped. I did it before I was thinking. But whenever it's wet out, I use a piece of rubber matting in front of the tub. I've been using that, doing that for about 8 months now. It's worked extremely well in wet situations. Whenever it's dry out, I don't use it because it's just one more thing you have to carry along with you. But whenever it's wet out, that will help save you from making mud. This here's the current system I'm using. It's been working really well for me. It's been working really well. I've used it all winter now, and I have 2 other ones out. I have one in the bull field and one in the broodmare field, and we haven't had any freeze ups. And then this here little copper tube here runs continuously, and then it overflows through this and dumps the water behind. That way you don't have a big pond right in front of where the cows water. Can also cause some ice issues too. Let me get this garden hose flipped over onto the other tub and we'll go from there. We'll get. And what I do is I'll insulate that with this foam, polyurethane or polyethylene, I'm not sure what it is, insulation. You can get it at any building center. And here's some thinner stuff. If it gets extremely cold, I'll wrap that and tape it on there. But it has to get down around 10 degrees before I need to do that. And then if it gets down below 10 degrees and we have a really hard wind, I'll cover this whole setup with a 55-gallon drum, and then if we have any snow, I'll shovel some snow up around it. We got the valve in. I don't know how well we're adjusted here, but we'll take a look at it. I'm going to shut my needle valve off for right now, and then we'll fill it up and see what it looks like. See the girls. The girls have all come to visit, say hello. Fat and sassy. I really like this cow here. She is a nice cow. She's nice and small. Easy flushing. She had a really nice calf this year. This here's a full sister to her. Turn it on and get her adjusted. Put our lid in there and see what it looks like, because that's what's going to dictate how full we make it. And I'm not going to run the lid, I'm not going to run this lid all the time. It's about perfect. The cows, they can come drink out of that. We'll leave the lid out here in the pasture field. We'll keep it with the tub all times. I'll try this little valve here. See the bubbles coming up. Depending on how hard you put it on, that water boils, having that small hole in there. That water boils and percolates all the time, and that keeps it from freezing. And I'm thinking that this tub here, what I'm hoping for, what I'm hopeful for, is this tub here won't get any ice on it through the nighttime, being that it's insulated on the outside. Let's really turn that on and see. Wow, boy, that baby will percolate. Naturally, that's going to be too much flow. You just need a little bit. Just needs to be on just a whisker. See how we got turbulation there, and it's got a little bit. I want to try and move this tub back a little bit so that's out in there further. That's probably too much. What I like to make it where you're dumping about 40 gallons a day, or about the same amount as what a cow will drink. And this setup, I've been using it since 2012 in different forms, letting the water flow and run so it doesn't freeze up. I found it to work extremely well. The nearest I can figure on my calculations, it costs 0.00175 cents to pump a gallon of water, and it's a lot cheaper to pump water than it is to heat water. And by heating water, you know, taking water and heating it with especially those electric heating elements, you're looking at about $75 to $80 a month to use one of those, and you don't necessarily need to. This here works extremely well. It may cost me $5 a month to pump water. I'm willing to sacrifice that. We're stabilized. That's about the stream that I like to come out. You can see these floaters on here. You can see the plastic floaters. They're in here. They're just moving around, circulating. I have this below the water surface. That way, whenever I put that lid on there, it causes an air block, and this water will stay warm. I'm going to go ahead and leave the lid off. I'm going to take this elbow out. I'm going to take this elbow out, and that way it doesn't give the cows something that they can chew on or play with. Put that in my toolbox. Okay, friends, this is something I thought you'd like to see. It's a way of keeping water to your livestock. It's one of the biggest challenges in the wintertime. For me, I didn't talk about the portability. It needs to be portable for the cows, because when you're out grazing, the way we do in the wintertime, we'll strip graze from hydrant to hydrant to hydrant. And the reason for that is I could leave that tub sit there until the cows get to the other end, but what I'm doing by leaving this here, the cows will come back and they'll transport the nutrients off that end of the field. So if this field here out this fence line, there's 4 hydrants. I'll keep hopping hydrants the whole way out across there, and we'll be able to distribute the soil nutrients. We could say manure and urine. And I'm being bumped by Buttons. Buttons is wanting a pet. Okay friends, hope you liked the video. If you haven't already subscribed, if you're new to the channel, please subscribe. Hit that notification bell so you can get updates whenever we post new videos. Don't forget to like, and if you have any comments, please feel free to comment in the section below. And the best part of that all is you can do that for nothing. It doesn't cost you a cent, and it actually helps us out. So long, have a good one. Happy grazing.